How's my creepy dungeon looking?
It's beautiful.
I can
Can you zoom in on yourself?
Yep.
There we go. There's like a little fireplace. Hold on.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
There's blinds.
Okay.
Get some of my children's artwork in there.
Yes.
Nice.
Let's fancy it up a little bit.
Fancy it up. Yeah. Just do a quick decor check here.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Hey, Charlie,
That's
that looks
better.
good.
No, it did nothing, huh?
No, it's a little
bit.
better. It's a little better. If we
What
could
if I
just get
turn
some
it this way?
candles lit, and then I think we're
Well, it should get darker because there's going to be a tornado, so it should just like
Perfect.
Yeah, should darken up a little bit.
Let us know if you need to dip out to the basement.
All right, guys, fuck. Stop horsing around. God,
This is fun.
this is already great.
Welcome to Oops, I'm in a Cult. I'm Scott Barker.
And I'm Charity Navalesi.
We are former members born and raised in the Living Word Fellowship, and we are here to investigate this organization that branded itself as a Christian church for over 70 years, but turned out to be just another cult.
In today's episode, we sit down with our friends Mike White and Charlie Hajek, who started a sister podcast around the same time that we started our podcast. It's called Snapping Out of It, and they cover the Living Word cult, interviewing and talking with former members, and also discussing other matters, culty-like matters. So we thought it would be fun to do a little crossover episode with our friends over at Snapping Out of It.
In this episode, we get to talk to them about their podcast, how it started, our podcast, how it started, and family dynamics, and a lot of the common themes that we see in the Living Word and between ourselves and etc. Stick around. It's really good, even if our intro isn't as good.
It's really fun. Just trust us.
Welcome to the whatever podcast this is. Are we going to change the title, or are we good with?
We love Oops, I'm in a Cult.
What is this podcast about, though, Charity?
John Robert Stevens.
The Living Word.
The Walk.
It's cults. It's cons.
And corn.
It's actually kind of healing, coming back around and really digging in deep. And,
Traumatic at times.
you know, we try and balance all of that. You're going to watch as two former cult members try to de-dumbify themselves by doing a podcast about the cult that they were involved in their entire life.
Thought it was a church, turned out it was a cult. Oh, there's a good tagline.
That's what it is. That's it.
Oops, I'm in a cult.
Yay!
Okay.
we did
All
it.
right. Okay.
I feel like I need a
Man.
cocktail.
Yeah, this is, we're gonna need. Yeah, this
Oh,
is
that
gonna
was
be a while.
that was the work for the day.
Yep. We got it.
Yeah.
What day are we doing this? We did the prep one.
This is the prep.
the
We're gonna
rehearsal.
do this later.
That was awesome, guys. I
Good
will make
rehearsal,
sure to
guys.
find a better spot for the real one.
Yeah.
It's darkening a little bit, so that's good. No,
Yeah.
so just keep my head up here.
All
Keep your head
right.
up.
We
Keep
have
your head up.
this is it. We're going to start. Roll and start here.
All right.
Well, this is our
Ready,
very special episode of Oops, I'm in a Cult, because we have the wonderful, amazing talents that bring you Snapping Out of It, which is another
Could
cult
we call it our
podcast.
sister podcast?
It's our
sister
I like
podcast.
it.
sister,
I like it.
sister, brother, mother podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Crossover episode.
Yeah,
This
Brought to
is
you
it.
by
Yes.
Oops, I'm in a Cult and Snapping
First-
Out of It.
First of
That's
many,
right.
hopefully.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. This
Fun.
is the Flintstones and the Jetsons episode crossover.
Oh, I love
I
it.
love
like
it.
it. So Scott,
so
you were gonna bring up like how how we didn't know we were starting podcasts at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah, well, we can. Yeah, that was exactly what I mean. Like, we basically did all start at almost the exact same time. But Charlie, tell us from your perspective what that was.
Yeah, that was amazing because I called you, right? I called Scott because Mike and I. So Mike and I had been talking for like a solid year, just consistently on the phone about this stuff, about this about what we experienced growing up, and just the psychology of cults and the psychology of cult leaders and the psychology of all these things. And we just would nerd out on the phone all the time. And I think kind of simultaneously we were like, maybe we should do a podcast and like talk about this stuff on a podcast. It was kind of just like, yeah, it just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, that's a great fucking idea. We should do that. And so one of the first people I thought of was you, Scott, because of the like documentary, like the episodes you had done. And so, I called you and I'm like all excited to get you on. And I was like, maybe our first guest will be Scott. He's like, and Scott's like, you were just kind of giggling on the other line. And you're like, that's funny. Charity and I started a podcast and we're about to release our first episode. So, thanks though. And damn it. But no, I was super excited because I was like, that is hilarious. And what just like perfect timing to like have two podcasts, very different, which I know we're going to talk about, but like very similar in their intent and ideas and so that was kind of just perfect timing to talk to you.
That was exactly, that was kind of funny, like at that, because I would have jumped right on to talk with you guys, but I was like, we like, we're already like, we had
we're already cruising.
We're already cruising. I think we like had just finished recording our first episode, and it was like ready to go.
We were going to release it like that week or something.
And so, we've been talking since day one about doing this. Or something like this. And
so we just over a year for sure.
Yeah. And that was the beginning of the vicious competition. So
that's right.
And it's just been
dog eat dog.
They're pumping out an episode every week.
We present it to the former culties. Who gonna please you? Do you? Because it's not one size fits all, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a ton of stuff to talk about, and that's like there's not enough recordings going on. I mean, of like things to talk about.
If there was 10 podcasts like this, it would be cool.
No.
Then it might actually be able to get through it.
There's a lot of people out there that want to tell us how we should do the podcast, and what we always say is like, guess what? You could start one. Do you guys face that too? People just especially former members, which it's not that this isn't for former members. It's very much for former members, but also it's like there's this pushback that I feel it's often like there's this sense of ownership that they have, which I do understand on one level because it's our shared experience. But on the other hand, it's like there's a lack of boundaries sometimes. And I don't know if I want you to include this in the episode because I don't want to get like yelled at by everybody. But like there is a bit of a lack of boundaries and people saying like, oh, I think you're doing it wrong and you should be doing this and you should be doing that, which is very like reminiscent of our cult experience. Exactly. Thank you.
Do you have, I think tell us if that's happened. And I think one place maybe you could frame that around is like, what was your feedback like from the Jeremiah, your first interview episode? What was that like?
That one was the most feedback we received, right, Mike? And Mike's kind of like the one. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. And, but like Mike would fill me in on stuff. So that's probably more of a Mike response there, but
it was controversial.
It was.
And I think that's good. I think on our vibe is we just want to like get people talking and get people to say what they think. And that's all. Doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Like there's nothing scary about hearing different people's viewpoints and stuff like that. It might feel scary, but it shouldn't. And so that's what then the feedback was and I actually do understand. So I started out being just now sounding kind of like I didn't understand. I do understand why it feels frustrating to have a podcast and then have something very, very different from what you want to hear. But people didn't love it because he was defending JRS somewhat, not defending JRS as much as he was. He had actually got his doctorate in the teachings of JRS, and so he was expressing that he's very much a expert in what he's said over the years, and he was saying there is some sense in which it's very just regular religion and that was not taken well. And I totally understand. I was really interested in what he had to say about how cults tend to take the Jesus figure out of, like the first thing a cult does is get rid of Jesus. And I remember, I'm not a Christian anymore, but I remember it was weird. Everybody we knew in just would never talk about Jesus, and we're Christians. And I guess there's a real like kind of reason, like a philosophical reason you get that guy out of there first, is because that's supposed to be like a bridge to like your own personal, which we would give lip service to personal walk with God, but then it wasn't personal. It was very much you're very much in service to your, Christ in the flesh. And and so Jeremiah in that podcast, one of the things I really wanted to hear him expound on was that concept of how they take the Jesus guy out so that they can kind of be the Jesus instead, and then like I'm your
you to Jesus
to God.
That's what I really did. I want to say, like, when that one came, I was messaging mostly with Charlie afterwards. I really liked that episode, and I deeply disagree with Jeremiah on like a lot of what he was saying, but I really did like it because I mean, that's the thing that you'll see about our episode, our podcast is like, God, I almost want to say unapologetically like anti-living word, and like it's and it is, and I don't want it to necessarily be that, but it's like I felt like the living word is pro the living word, and they produced thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of tapes with their perspective. So like maybe we should hear a different perspective. But that definitely is not inviting to anybody like Jeremiah, who might reserve a little bit of space for the founder. And it can be very off-putting, which just means we don't tell that side of the story. And, I struggle with that a little bit, but it's okay. And that's why I really liked the Jeremiah episode, is because it was very revealing into the mind of somebody that is still trying to save space for John Robert Stevens. So I think that's really great, and I love that you guys got a lot of shit over it. So
and I want to say one more thing about that too. Is I've changed a lot since that episode. And part of it, listening to your guys' podcast, like I was a little bit more, I've deeply, deeply disliked JRS, but I was a little bit more like, still had that like he's cuddly vibe about him, like, and then listening to your podcast, like full on really bad narcissist, like that guy, like really like bad dude. What I felt like one of the most interesting things was on the Luann one recently, when she talked about how she walked in and you would just catch him being horribly abusive to somebody. He'd see that he was caught, his face would go blank, and he'd just walk away. And that's so creepy. And it just really like, I've really changed how I feel about him. So I think if we did that interview over, I don't know, I feel like I would have had more sort of visceral disgust.
Do you think you would have like pushed back on him more?
Maybe. And like, I still really want, I mean, my personal feeling is I still really want people to be free to just come in and say how they feel about stuff. I probably disagree more adamantly and aggressively with Jeremiah when we're talking privately, which we have done before over the years. And he's really good about like taking, like me saying, I think all that's bullshit, and he'll and bad and evil, and he'll be like, okay, cool, so like but I think on our podcast I tend to want to like let people say what they think, and but like I don't know if Charlie, I mean, what do you think about all that?
That was a big episode for me too. I know that I kind of went into that one having had, like same thing, wanting to just let him talk. And I went into it knowing that I was going to, because we'd already had conversations as well. Jeremiah and I had personal conversations where we were totally disagreeing on things about it. And so I think I'm more, and Mike, you and I talked about this, but I think I more went into it like very like prepared, like holding myself back. There were moments that I definitely wanted to engage in a debate or like call things out. And it was the same kind of thing that you're saying, that I was like, that's not what I want this to be. I find that boring. I think like watching people argue or debate, I don't know. It's just, there's really no point in that. And so for me personally, there was a couple times that, I know there was a few questions I wish I would have asked or whatever, but like the few that I did, I felt were cool because it sparked an interesting conversation. Same with like a couple things that Mike asked. And so, yeah, I think we could always look back on it and be like, I wish I would have asked this more or whatever. But like, I felt really good about it too. And I loved that we got shit about it. I loved that people were super angry about it. For one, I think there's a lot of different reasons why I think that's great. One, I think it's just sparking people's interest in like forcing them to dig deep into their own experiences. So if it's polarizing, I think it's helpful. Not always, but in this case, I think it was. And like getting people to be like, people were texting me that just like real pissed off. Like just like this bullshit, like what a fucking, and I was kind of just like really happy about it. I don't know. But like, I also really respected the fact that Jeremiah had the balls to come on and, sorry for lack of a better word, like he had the confidence, and it's a scary thing to do, knowing that you're going to come onto something that people are going to hear and knowing that most people are going to really feel differently. And like,
do you think he knew that? Do you think that's what he expected?
I actually do. I didn't at first really, but I think since talking to him afterwards, I think he did. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I think he did know. And I think also based on some conversations that I had with him afterwards, I think he changed a lot of his thinking about things after that too.
Did he decide he would be willing to listen to our podcast?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That was.
Yeah,
and you can say if you want us to not include this in the episode, but when you had said that you asked him if he listened to our episode, a plagiarism episode about JRS and stuff, and he was like, I don't want to listen to their stuff. I think they have an agenda, and I was like. Hello? Yeah, we do have an agenda. And so do you, Jeremiah. It's just, let's hear I mean, we listened to what all the stuff that he had to say that I was like, at least be open. That's
I think, and I think that's exactly was my response to him in that moment was like, oh yeah, no, they do have an agenda and I love it. This is a great agenda. The agenda is to expose the living word as a cult and to talk about with receipts, very convincing reasons, convincing like arguments of this or whatever. And so, I was like, I agree with you. They do have an agenda. And I think there could be a lot that could be eye-opening for you about it, but that's for everybody's, I'm not trying to get anybody to listen to anything they don't want to, but I feel like a lot. Again, I think that was my favorite part about that episode is I feel just like so much came through it. I feel like he was forced to think about things because some of the things he said, I think maybe I'm not speaking for him. Maybe he thought later like, oh yeah, that does sound like short-sighted, or like I'm talking about my experience, but not really seeing the bigger picture and like the majority experience. Because his experience was a minority experience. His experience was it was the rare experience in the Living Word Fellowship. It was one of a few, and the majority were more like us and much worse.
Right. That's a theme that, we hear a lot is there are people out there that are like, well, that wasn't my experience. Therefore it didn't happen. And it's it's infuriating because just because it didn't happen to you doesn't mean it didn't happen to the rest of us or some of us. And I just feel like if your beliefs are so fragile that you can't hear another person's perspective, then do you really deep down believe it that hardcore? It's the same with Christianity. Like some people have been coming at us like, oh, you're anti-religion, you're anti-Christianity. And I'm so sad you've lost Jesus. And it's like, well, and just really like upset with us for pushing back on Christianity.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, you know, we're not, if that's what you believe, that's great.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to tell you you're a piece of shit because you're a Christian. Absolutely not. We're just asking
Right.
questions
Yeah.
and asking you to ask questions. And I just like want to challenge people.
Yeah. Well, these are the
consider.
Yeah.
You know.
To me, these are the fundamental problems with religion in general. This is my opinion. And that's why I would even argue, like, I could argue that Christianity is a cult itself. It's because there's no questioning. There's no, you know, like, I mean, I'm sure there are in specific organizations or churches themselves, like one by one, but like, there's very little room for any sort of asking questions.
Any kind of critique,
any kind of questions, any kind of like pushback, any sort of disagreement or whatever. But like you're saying, just asking the questions and putting them out there. And that's where the Living Word Fellowship really turned it up to 11, of course, was with that. Like, and we've talked about, that's such a common theme in your episodes and in our episodes and in conversations I have with people is like, and to me, that's what makes a cult really stand out, is that you're not allowed to ask questions. But
I think that's that and the feedback, just to like kind of tie it all into that thing, the feedback we get, which is like whatever, you know, this, like we've said, like a lot of the people that listen are former members, and so they have like our personal @s or text messages or whatever, and so like, you get it from like a lot of different directions. But like Jeremiah, the feedback that you guys got from that, or like when we do an episode where we talk about like, you know, maybe there's some like history where Christianity is not great, and like these kind of things, when that stuff comes in, it almost feels like it's in a, like maybe you felt this way, Charlie and Mike, like with the Jeremiah episode, it's like, it almost feels like the anger that people felt when they heard what he had to say, his opinions, his statements, was directed at you for platforming that, for choosing to point, you know, your microphones at him in that place, and not, I don't know, not yelling at him and having a debate, you know, like you said, but instead standing back and letting him talk.
Right.
How do you think that like, I don't know, I think it's kind of a fair thing for people to be upset and to make that argument, like you chose your platform to do blah, blah, blah. But how do you see that?
I see it as dynamic. Like, the whole point is talking. I feel like that was sort of the beginning of the whole thing with me. The seed of the whole thing is because me and Charlie were started talking. We never stopped talking to each other, but we weren't really talking about our experiences with like the cult and stuff like that. We just kind of moved on. And then, like, I knew he didn't believe in God anymore. He knew I didn't believe in God anymore. There was nothing stopping us from talking. I mean, we would mention like that was a cult, but we wouldn't really go over things. And then we started talking. I don't know. We just decided one day, hey, let's like go back and like talk about how things were. And his experience was so much different than I would have guessed his experience was. And I don't know, Charlie, if you thought mine was any different than what you would have guessed mine was, but that's right. Yeah, you did say that. And so we're just like, we talk and we don't know what each other experienced.
Yeah, we're like
what it
close
was like.
friends and we don't know.
And it's just, and then like the more we were thinking about it, we're like, nobody's talking about any of this stuff. Everybody had completely different experiences. Nobody is talking. And who benefits from nobody talking? The people who are like responsible for all the worst shit. And and so like we don't know that much about like what's right and wrong about when you do a podcast, but we know that people have to talk more. And so like optimizing, and so I guess like Jeremiah is talking, and people saying, why are you bringing Jeremiah on, is talking. That's all talking, and it's all good. And I want to hear all of it. And I am learning a lot. Like I've learned a lot since we started this podcast. I've changed completely how I think about certain things.
Yeah.
I won't go into all of it yet or whenever, but I just know all of it's talking, all of it's good.
Yeah. Well, give us one thing that's changed that you changed because doing your podcast.
Yeah, because of doing our podcast and also listening to your podcast, I think, like Charlie said, the receipts on your guys' podcast is just absolutely. You guys have my favorite podcast in the world. Just the receipts that you bring is so beautiful. Like, and so, and so things have along those lines have changed my mind. Is like I had always thought I have like a too generous. This isn't like a humble brag. It's actually a bad thing to have, but like a too generous. I'm too hard at like seeing that people could be bad. You know, like really deeply bad and like consciously aware of what they're doing. And I have a really hard time seeing that people could be doing that. And I'm starting to see some people were consciously doing bad things and deliberately covering it up and deliberately threatening people to not talk about it. And to me, it was more like, people just have incentive. They just respond to incentives and, people just have insecurities and it's true, but also people can be really aware that they're being abusive and continue to do it because they think they're going to get away with it. And I just had a blind spot for that. Now I have less of one.
I think that's really understandable though, considering our experience, because when you are exposed to narcissists like that your whole life and you're gaslit constantly, it's easy to develop that idea that, like, for example, every time maybe that you thought something was off or weird in the cult, the narcissist would tell you, and I use that term kind of loosely, but also, like, let's face it, most of the leaders. But if you are bringing something like, hey, I think this is wrong, and every time you do, that person is like, no, you're just not seeing it right.
Right.
You start to question your own intuition, your own integrity, like your own belief, like, oh, I must be seeing it wrong. And these people are actually good and I'm just seeing it wrong. So then for me, like, it makes sense that, because I have been similar. I'm like, maybe a little too far the other way now, or I'm like, I don't trust anybody, but, but I've always been like that too, where I just always giving people the benefit of the doubt. And like, people are inherently good and like nobody's trying to be bad. And it's because of how we were raised, because we were told all the time that we shouldn't trust our own feelings about stuff. And then you should, give yourself to these leaders. They're right no matter what. So does that make sense? I mean, like, I just don't beat yourself up for that. It's also, it is a sweet trait too, but you got to find the balance, right?
I think you're totally right. Too. Charity, I think that's, like you're saying, that was my realization was not that was going on, but that's a part of the control is doing that, is stripping you of your confidence in yourself, any sort of trusting your gut. We were told our bodies were trash, like just useless, and not trusting our own intuition and not following our own hearts and minds and whatever. And so you're right. So we do need to be easy on ourselves and easy on others for that. But it's also realizing, like, kind of maybe like what Mike is saying, is that, like, realizing that this was intentional. This was an intentional, like, outline of how it's supposed to, because that's how every cult operates. That's a part of the script. That's a part of the book. Is like you systematically break down people and remove their all these parts of themselves. And when you realize that people are doing that intentionally, that's really damaging. It's extremely damaging. And so I very much understand. I think it's completely fair for people to have been very upset about, like, that episode or any sort of conversation that's not calling it out. For what I believe it actually 100% was. But like, I think just like Mike's saying, like, talking about it is the most important thing.
This podcast is brought to you by us, your friendly neighborhood cult busters.
Oops, I'm in an advertisement. If you'd like to support our efforts and access exclusive bonus content,
like behind the scenes conversations,
let's put this behind us.
access to our research and more,
Head over to Supercast, where you can subscribe monthly or yearly.
it's exclusive, it's personal, it's behind the scenes.
All about the Living Word cult.
Went to the records department trying to get filings for John Robert Stevens' divorce.
This is an unskippable advertisement.
Thanks and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
So-
I just wanted to say super quick. I still think it's a mixed bag. I don't think everybody who did bad things was doing them consciously and viciously. I think.
No, fuck that. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I was being.
I still think, and I might find out I'm wrong. I still think that's very rare. It's mostly people are concerned with like status, and they have a lot of insecurity, and they want to do things, and there's a lot of fear of the people above you are going to get mad at you if you say the wrong thing. So you say the safe thing, which is a lot of times an abusive thing to say to someone. Anyways, like, I think there's a lot of that too, but
absolutely. And to clarify too, like, no, I'm definitely not saying that every single person in a position of leadership or authority, quote unquote, in the Living Word Fellowship was intentionally a narcissist and intentionally trying to harm people. I mean, that's more my argument for the fact that JRS wasn't this guy that it was just a church that started and he just wanted.
Right.
I think it was something that he taught people how to control other human beings. And I believe
he worked hard to get his free pulpit.
He really did. Yeah.
My precious name.
Yeah. He was a charlatan. He was a charlatan that was really, really, really charismatic and intelligent, and he passed those things on. And so I'm just saying the framework that's created, builds that kind of environment. And you're right. Of course,
Absolutely.
not every single person. Sure. Yeah, a lot of people were groomed to be that way. They were trained to be that way from a young age where they didn't know better, and a lot of people thought they were doing good, for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. When that's your entire life, when you're trying to be a leader in that place, it's like I always look at it's natural selection. A lot of people got pushed out or blew out or whatever along the way, and those that gave into their narcissistic personality, like whether they're born narcissist or not, leaning into that stuff made you more successful in that world. Yeah. And so I think it's definitely like a gradient. That's the way it seems. It's obviously at the top, like the kingpin is going to be the one that's the worst. And then it's like that, especially with the Elijah shepherding stuff, it's just all the way down to like, they set this path. They're like, here's the playbook. If you want to do it, then you're in. Otherwise, like we're kicking you out or you're blowing out because it's not working for you at a certain point,
Yeah.
That's what's so sad about it is that they know how to prey on people's insecurities. And like, 100%. What is the root of narcissism is insecurity. It's just like a real shit manifestation of a deep insecurity. Yeah. So like Scott said, even if you're not born a narcissist, if they like prey on your insecurities like enough, then you can develop those narcissistic traits as a way to overcompensate for the feelings, like bad feelings you have about yourself. And then you get a position in the church, or Marilyn pays attention to you, or you're suddenly like, somebody in the church, then it makes you feel like, oh, I'm okay, I'm good. And then you want more of that. So then you have to play by their rules in order to keep in that position. And you just lose yourself in that.
100%.
Yeah. So you guys, we have we had other things earmarked here for like some of your podcasting stuff, but maybe they can all kind of circle together. But like, in some of your early episodes, when you were telling your stories, you talked about your deconstruction, not only out of the cult, but like ultimately out of Christianity. And I wonder, and you kind of laid out your purpose for your podcast, which, I think snapping out of it is like a perfect name for that, because you can apply that to so many different things where like your brain is trained a certain way. And then you're just like, you read something or like you just are exposed to a different opinion. And then oh shit, like I'm an idiot, whatever. What is that? Is that something that's still very interesting to you? How do you explore that? How do you explore that with yourselves, that snapping out of it feeling? And what do you want to look at broadly with cults and religion or I don't know, whatever?
Yeah,
that's
everything.
Yeah, no, that's such no, I'm like going like, oh wow, that's probably the main thing that Mike and I talk about consistently.
Yes,
that's the number one thing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of I not speaking for you, Mike, jump on in. But I think that was our intent on starting the podcast in general, was to explore all that stuff. We started out interviewing each other, and then we've talked to people from the Living Word Fellowship, and then the episode we did about with the bite model from Dr. Hassan.
That was great.
That was an important one to us. Like I had said in that episode, I had read his book a long time ago, a couple of his books, but the one when I saw that laid out, that was a big aha moment for me that really pushed it over the threshold of, I had already started to question stuff. I wasn't coming around. I was whatever, but like that really pushed it over where I started to see broadly outside of the Living Word Fellowship and see just how this can happen in so many different situations. And then I got obsessed with, the psychology behind it and how common it is in all different walks of life and in all different in work and in like a profession, how that can, operate that way in a personal relationship, in a marketing cult, and then, there's so much to explore that's why we came up with snapping out of it, was because it's so broad of a thing. It can relate to everything,
So Mike, what personal relationship for you has been cult-like?
What personal relationship for me has been cult-like?
Yeah, and just like Charlie just mentioned personal relationships and like how it can be like this. Is this something that you guys, like, how have you seen these broader topics play in your life, maybe even outside of just the Living Word? Have you at all?
Yeah. Like, I've had bosses. We had an episode that Leandra
Hayes. Leandra Hayes.
Yeah, Hayes. Yeah, we all knew her as Leandra Alex. She came on and talked about, I really related to, where you'd wind up going to work for bosses that would just trounce on your boundaries, and you'd just be like,
this is normal.
Sounds about right. Yeah, this is what, this is how I can show my value, is by not having boundaries. And so the answer to your question, Scott, is everyone, because I'm fully codependent. And so just, I meet people within 5 minutes. I shouldn't broadcast this because I'm saying, hey, come take advantage of me. But I just meet people and I'm like, I see the best possible version of who they are. And honestly, this is actually a bit of a superpower, because naturally we tend to be too suspicious. People are really good. Like, people really are better than most people give them credit for. Most people would just do it. I mean, most people want to help. That whole thing of like stranger danger, teach your kids not to talk to strangers, is mostly bullshit, because most people are good, and if your kids need something, a person is going to be helpful. And so I guess I'm saying,
let your kids talk to as many strangers as possible.
Yes, I'm saying
if they have candy,
come take advantage of me. No, I'm just kidding. But like, I'm saying that it is a good thing. It can be a good thing, because there really is good to see in people. And I'm not just being all like sweetsy. I think it's just true. I think most people are better than, we're more afraid of people than we need to be in general. But then the ones that are bad, we evolved that trait of being suspicious of people for a reason, because the ones that are bad are really, really bad, and they can do a lot of damage to you very quickly if you're not aware. And so all that to say, I tend to be too far. I'm working on it, but I tend to be too far in the direction of trusting and willing to just kind of do, like, if somebody just asks me for stuff, I'm like, I'll just whatever. I just do whatever for you. And so, and that's a very codependent relationship to have with people
really
to where you're just people pleasing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I was definitely had that drilled into me, the people pleasing thing.
Oh God,
That's how we survived.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really
comes
like
up
what
in my
you're.
life so much. Sorry, go. Scott.
I want to hear the same thing from you, Charlie. But I just really like the way that you say that, Mike. I don't like that, as quick as you go to like, oh, it's my fault because everybody, whatever. But like there is a truth in that, because that also means the solution is in you. You can't change everybody else. You can't stop people from being manipulative and taking advantage of people and all of that. But you can, get the strength inside of yourself to like fix it. And I really like that you say that, because I see this all the time is the way I feel, too, with my own stuff, is that like the deepest, like the thing that hurts me the most, and especially in the way that I relate to people or whatever, is also can be a superpower. It's just about how you control it, like you're saying, like, like people can come and take advantage of you, but it's also really great to be trusting of people. And that's a really good thing. And it is. And it's just about like, how do you have control over it instead of letting it, suck you into some other cult?
Yeah.
It's like learning to be just savvy with it, because you don't want the negative experiences that if you've had to take away your gentleness and your kindness and your love, and like that would be the abusers winning, in my opinion, so there's like, sometimes I feel like when you're in the healing process and the self-discovery, you go from one extreme to the other, but eventually find your way to an equilibrium, because I mean, it just to let our traumas make us cynical and like hateful and all of that stuff, it would be really tragic, because your kindness and your generosity and your huge heart, like that is who you are. You just don't want it to be taken advantage of. So it's finding that middle ground.
Yeah. So Charlie, how do people take advantage of you?
Give us a how-to.
No, it's crazy how the people pleasing thing is big on my end, and like it's so interesting to have like I've talked about in other episodes and stuff, having seen the Living Word Fellowship for kind of what it was at a pretty young age, in a way, and like being not really being pulled into it, and not really being allured by the magic, and being like feeling like I was kind of ahead of the curve in so many ways. And I feel like now I'm almost 40 and I'm like just starting to be a human being, like truly.
Yeah.
And for me personally, that came out of therapy, and I didn't get to that point until I got this trauma therapist that specialized in religious trauma. But she's like, I just was really lucky to find this. Shout out to Trish. She's amazing. And so she, when I started working with her and really working like through all these things, that's when I'm like, oh, I started realizing that like I didn't know anything. I was a child still, and discovering all these ways that I put myself last in relationships and in work. Like when it came to work, I would kill myself for people for no reward, because I just thought that's what you're supposed to do. I didn't require any sort of reciprocation of respect or anything. It didn't matter. I'm like, that's not, this person's my boss. I have to do everything and they can treat me however they want. Like that's, and like, in so many different ways I found, and I'm finding like today and yesterday and tomorrow, I'm so stunted in so many ways. And so it's like, in one way that's inspiring, because you're aware of it, and you can, and you're like, it's not too late, and I can dive in and I can do work and I can change and rewire my brain and retrain myself and, all these things. And like, I'm just really thankful for discovering that kind of healing. But like, I don't think I'm as close to Mike as when it comes to like being super trusting of people and like kind of just like, everybody means well. I think it's more like, I can put myself last and whatever else I'm doing there first. And obviously it's not a healthy, you got to have a healthy balance. And so that's where it's manifested in my life, is that, I just haven't given myself, but we were trained, we were born, I was personally born into, I think all four of us, we were born into it, where that's the training we received from day one. We were told, and our parents handed us over to these people, and we were told to serve them hand and foot, and put aside anything within ourselves. And so it kind of makes sense that it would take a little while to rewire that and to, like, retrain your brain.
Yeah.
But I find it every day, every single day. I find something and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, fuck. Okay, gotta talk to Trish about that one. Jesus.
It's layers, right?
Yeah.
Just
keeping the therapy industry propped up with our experiences.
we can put them on the side. We got a whole new bag of they're just like, it's pretty ongoing for sure. But
cool.
Speaking of moms.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Is that your
I
next?
think
family dynamics.
Oh yeah.
Because I think
set it up,
most
Charity.
of
What's
us
going on?
Set it up.
Well, I think most of us have probably more you three than me. My mom left the cult before I did, and was
I remember that was really interesting.
That's right. Yeah.
And I was really having a lot of doubts at the time, and like just begging for somebody to validate them and be like, you can leave. But my mom was afraid to, because she had cut off her own family for 15 years. And she's like, but so there's all those tricky dynamics. Yeah.
That's
and I think, but I know that the three of you still have family members who are believers in either JRS or Gary or just the Living Word in general. And like, what is that like for you guys how do you navigate, like, are you still like in touch with your families? And if you are, like, how do you navigate those turbulent waters?
Yeah. Well, remember how we talked about superpowers, that compartmentalization is a superpower.
Ooh,
and so is just being able to live with what's that called when you believe two different things at once, and then
the one cognitive.
Don't say dichotomy. Gary's favorite word.
Dichotomy.
I don't know why I can...
By virtue of
dichotomy in the hidden treasures.
Yes.
Dichotomy. I'm just going to talk about Gary the rest of the episode. Sorry.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Trigger warning.
That's such a great idea. Yeah. If we're looking for feedback on an episode, here is it.
Okay, we're all going to play somebody that was in leadership. I'm going to try and be Marilyn. I'll do my best to
All you got to do is just speak in gibberish and say things that make no sense. You got it. That's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's why I picked her. Sorry, Mike.
What was the actual word that you were looking for?
Thanks for giving me so much time to think about it. Actually, just cognitive dissonance. Yeah. So I'm good. I'm good at. I've got that superpower and the compartmentalization. But I mean, like, or once slowly. But I mean, I do that well. But and I feel like slowly it's getting better. I feel like if I go in like guns blazing, like it's me or them, it doesn't go so well. But if I give a lot of time to just be aware, like, hey, this is an unwinding process for them, not a snapping out of it thing for them.
You're
There's a lot
about
of guilt,
your parents,
I think,
right?
Yeah,
You're talking about your parents.
Are you talking about your parents?
And I know they have a lot of guilt over. They've apologized to me before about how my life was just sort of spent working, and it wasn't like a childhood so much. And so I just, I'm just trying to be just slow, but I'm not moving off of where I'm at. It's been funny with them. I've been an atheist and just kind of open about it for a long time, since way before the cult blew up. I just sort of, it was a snapping out of it for me. I read some Dawkins and some stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, there's just no such thing. It's
propaganda,
all made up.
devil propaganda.
Yeah. And for some reason, that was much more acceptable to them than if I was to be like, I'm going to go to a different church because this is a cult. That makes sense.
Really? That's so interesting.
Yeah. And I started to, at first it was just like, oh, well, they're just really open. And I started to realize, well, it's more about, it's not that. It's that it's less of a direct attack on what they believe in. If I just say supernatural stuff doesn't exist,
Yeah.
So that's been, so they've been given a lot of time to kind of warm up to the idea of me, and I've been sort of changing where I'm coming from, but it's slow.
Is it challenging, like, as far as for your healing process? Like, do you feel that because they still believe in all those things that really deeply harmed you, does it feel invalidating to your experience at all?
Yeah, and it's changing for them too. Like, there's stuff that I feel like they would have been a few years ago that just absolutely adored Marilyn. Now it doesn't seem like so much. And then but yeah, the answer is yes. It's hard.
Yeah. It is like it is one of those things of, it's a good reminder though that for some of us, it happened fast. For some of us, it was a slow roll into leaving. For some of our parents' generations, I feel like it's even harder because they gave us to it. And there's like, if I acknowledge, this is just a theory that I have. Yeah. If they acknowledge that it was all shit, like the level of guilt would be almost unbearable, I think.
I have the same
I gave
theory.
my whole life, and I gave my children's lives, and it would just be really overwhelming. So I try to remember to have more grace.
Yes. I love that. I have that same theory. I feel like it's just too much guilt and shame to grab on, to like let yourself feel all at once. And I feel like it's slow.
Yeah.
Charlie, your family, it seems like you are very involved. Although I don't know what that means anymore. It's about as I don't think either. You've got, but like, you have some. I would say that like there's like everything kind of split apart. There's not really like a Gary figure anymore. I mean, Gary's still around, and but he's doing something separate from the Living Word now, kind of. Right. I mean, I don't know.
It's dichotomy.
But the dichotomy, he's fully leaned into the dichotomy of it all.
He's doing his dichotomy.
Yeah. But then there is still a Living Word entity that exists. And I think you have a family that's still close and involved with that. How do you, what's your tactic?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is you probably know more about my family's involvement in things than I do, based off of like your research and stuff, truly, which is super fascinating to me. But I bet you that would be the case, because I actually know very little about their involvement currently.
Why?
Other than like, it's been a tricky thing. When it blew up, 2018, when everything went down, there was a lot of contentious battles between my family and myself, and
spiritual battle.
Yeah, spiritual battle.
Well, because just for people who don't know, your sister is deeply involved in the leadership of the cult.
Yep. Yeah. My sister and her husband were leaders in the LA chapter, whatever you want to call it, location, and like, yeah, very high up. And, you know, I was really close with my sister up until she started to get trained as a leader. I think she was 15, 16, something like that. And
trained as a leader.
Yeah.
Is that the word we're using? Okay.
I'm going to use the word. I'm going to use the word groomed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's interesting. Yeah. It's a hard thing to talk about because, well, this is my theory on this, is that I think this is one of the things that, and I've spoken to her about this, but something that bothers me the most out of anything, and is that I do believe she was groomed at a young age to be a person that really did a lot of harm to a lot of people. But I believe that she's a really good person in her heart. And that's from what I know of her as us growing up together, you know, and like her being my sister. And that's one of the things that's most upsetting to me that I've had to work through, is that the cult did that to so many people. And that's what cults do, is they take people that aren't, it's hard to know for sure with somebody if they were born with a genetic predisposition to this or narcissistic, behavior. But I believe that she wasn't, and that like she was trained on how to be that way and taught how to do that from the most impressionable age. Yeah. And so that's really hard for me to like get into, because it makes me so angry. Like it's like a deeply angering thing, because I think she's a wonderful human being. And I think she was robbed of her life. And like, so I have a lot of grace, but at the same time, and I've had conversations with her years ago about this, where I got to the point where I could kind of see it a little bit clearer. And at first I was just angry with her and all these things, and angry with my parents. And I the thing you guys said about the parents, like not being able to handle, the guilt of acceptance, of things, of how it affected us and all the things we went through. I think that that's really true too. And with my sister, I think it's like, yeah, she was taken in and groomed to be this person. And like, that sucks, because that's not fair. It's really unfair that had to happen to her and so many other people. God, it happened to so many other people, specifically, mostly women, and like, I know that men were definitely groomed and taught to be, these leaders that were horribly abusive, specifically mentally and spiritually, to people. They were enforcers. My sister was an enforcer. I feel like she was, I know, Charity, I know you had time with her and stuff back in the day, but like, I think she was kind of like the bully. They kind of made her an enforcer. They made her do the dirty work. That's like we were talking about in our episode with Leandro's, the flying monkeys thing. And that's so upsetting to me, because I think she's deeply a really, truly great person.
I agree with you. I mean, she and I were friends. Yeah. And it is really sad, because I agree with you. I think she is genuinely like a good, wonderful person, but she got lost in all of that. Yeah. Her true
I haven't, essence. Yeah. And so like when everything kind of blew up, I kind of, this was a wonderful thing to discover, was healthy boundaries. And so who'd have thought like that was a thing? I didn't know anything about that. So pretty recently, a couple of years ago. Yeah. And shout out to Trish again for that. But so I developed these healthy boundaries with my family, because things were just we weren't seeing eye to eye. We were fighting. It was like, I was trying to get them to see my perspective. They were doing the thing that we were talking about, where it's like, well, I had good experiences. So, and I was just trying to be like, well, those are not, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that good things didn't ever happen. Like, here's what I'm trying to say, is that there were a lot of really bad things ahead. And so we never really got to that point. And what's cool, and this took a while, but for me currently, I've kind of redeveloped a relationship with my family that's outside of it. And it's very kind of surface level. There's a lot of love in it. and we just don't talk about it. And we don't, it's interesting. I got to a point within myself that's healthy enough where I don't need to, and I could work through it within myself and like change what I can change in my life with it. And I'm letting them, I let them go. I just like let them go. And it was really hard for a couple of years, of course, but it was the healthiest thing that could have ever happened. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
What kind of things
yeah
helped you in that process, like to get there? Besides Trish, we love Trish.
Well, yeah, but Trish is more of a recent. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Trish. What a name too. Yeah, no, like Trish is more of a recent finding. But like, yeah, I did a lot of self work. I just dove into. Well, for one, it kind of forced itself. You know, it was kind of like it was too painful to keep trying to get, you know, to chip away at this and try to like see each other's perspectives, that it was so painful. And a lot of people had been really hurt by my family when everything blew up. And like, I don't know. I think it was just something in me that broke, that made me just, I couldn't handle it anymore. I just was like, I have to separate from this dysfunction, and all I can do is control my life, and you guys live your life. And it took a long time. That didn't just like, it wasn't like I woke up and I was like, oh, this feels great. Everything's worked itself out overnight, but it was like, I could see clearly that like, it was kind of a road that was going nowhere, trying to like, you know, force my experiences, try to get them to understand my experiences.
Yeah,
it's going to go nowhere.
Trying to convince.
Yeah, you can't convince somebody. Them. Yeah. And so it's just that understanding. But it did force me to develop some very, very healthy boundaries and be like, hey, like, because they would still talk about it all the time. And it was like, it was me forcing that boundary of being like, nope, I'm not going to, you can live your life that way, but I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to surround myself with anything having to do with it, all these kind of things. And so, yeah, it's been years of like working at that, but now somewhat recently, we're kind of rebuilding something new, and it's pretty amazing. It's like, wow. My life is my life and their life is their life. And this is how it should have been, right? Like, this is how, like, I don't know. It's like, disagreement and having different perspectives and experiences is very healthy, and it should be that way. And you should be able to like still maintain, because there's a lot of things that we do love and share with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't keep in constant touch. We have, you know, we stay in touch, but we don't, you know, it's hard. I just don't really go there.
Yeah.
Really go there with them.
It's tricky because you know, like when it's something, you know, it's almost like that old thing people used to say back when people were polite and we had polite society and all that, is like, don't discuss religion and politics.
Yeah.
And that rule is like, it makes a ton of sense. But it also gets really frustrating because like these things are real and they affect us in like real ways. And so how could you not talk about it? But as we're learning, not just with the cult and stuff, but just our country and politics and all that stuff, it doesn't work. You can't have a discussion about it. It doesn't. No one's convincing the other person over the table. You know, that like, you're wrong. See, I watched a news segment that said you're wrong. You know, like, didn't you see this research or whatever? It doesn't. I think it can, like, those kind of arguments can happen on like a personal, in your own little safe space over here. But like, when it comes to like your friends and family, if you're just yelling at each other, no one's going anywhere. You just dig in. There's actually, I think, even a like psychological precedent of it. It's the backfire effect which is that if you present evidence that proves that somebody's deeply held belief is wrong, they actually dig in and entrench more into that belief, and protect it. And that's because I think a lot of times, and I think what we see with the living word and stuff, is identity and just religion in general gets intermeshed with the religion or the belief system. And so you kill the belief and you kill your identity, and that's
terrible. And I think that's kind of, I definitely experienced a little bit of that. In leaving and deconstructing from the church and faith and all of that stuff was losing a little bit of my identity because I didn't know how to define myself without all of that stuff. So it is very like, why talk to your Like, can you just instead if you want to keep the relationship, that's more important than what they do with in their prayers and their voting booth and stuff.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like all you can do is work on yourself and you can't control anybody else. And I mean, it's just it's a good thing for all walks of life in every way. And it's like when you kind of discover that and dig into that, again, this is the opposite of what we were taught growing up in the Living Word Fellowship. We were taught the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
And ironically, it's another rewiring of your brain.
Yeah. And ironically, the second you do completely let go of the idea that you're going to change somebody's mind, that you can control what they think, you actually can talk to them a little bit. Like I've been talking to my parents a little bit more. Like we talked, I mean, because our podcast came up at Thanksgiving. And I've been meaning to talk to him about it. So good. And I've been meaning to talk to him about it because I was kind of like, it wasn't a secret, but I was like, I'm not going out of my way to bring this up. You're not going out of your way to bring up stuff you're still doing with them or whatever. And but I'm like, I'm not gonna not, whatever. So it came up, and I was just like, yeah, we're doing this, and they were they're very supportive, and but then there was like things they would say that are predictable, like, so kind of, why are you digging into the past? And I'm like, because you have to. And so I just, and then there was other ones. One was, they were surprised that I loved your guys' podcast because you guys have such an agenda. And I was like, no, it's my favorite podcast. Yeah. And then I actually sent my dad you made the clickable or the shareable slide of JRS.
Oh yeah. The plagiarism. Yeah.
Receipts.
Yeah. And so, and I already also said that to Jeremiah. And it's fun. I'm being a broken record here, but my goal is just talk. And once you accept, you can't really control what people think. You can go back to just talking and and you're not quite as frustrated when they don't change, because they're not going to.
That's right.
And if they do, they're not going to do it in real time while you're proving them something.
Exactly.
They might sit with something and 4 years later go like, you know what? Like I was a dick. And
you just keep doing your thing, and then
So as soon as you let go,
or maybe you'll come around to their side, maybe in 4 years you'll come back and agree with them. They were right all along.
I guess JRS was amazing.
You're like, he did go back in time 7 years.
Yeah.
It was maybe forward in time, Charlie. It was forward.
You're right.
It was both.
I
think he did time travel.
No. That's right. He came back. Yeah, that was a Back to the Future situation. That's right. Back to the past, I guess.
Back to the past. It's so interesting, the thing.
You don't need boundaries where we're going.
Roads. The whole thing about, you have an agenda. It's like, well, doesn't anyone who starts a podcast have an agenda? And also, it's like, well, what I want to ask you guys is if doing this, because I get like a visceral reaction when I hear things like that, or criticisms from former cult members, like, cut deeper for me. Because I guess because they had such power over my self-esteem in the past, that like a stranger can comment and say something shitty, and I'm like, yeah, well, okay. But like, if it's a former cult member, it feels so personal still. Yeah. And going back into this world, it's like Scott and I both were like, before, I didn't want anything to do with anybody that. Even people that I still really loved and liked, like I had to delete a lot of social media stuff. I just couldn't even see people's names. I didn't want anything to do with any of these people, so that I could really create enough distance for myself to feel safe
Yeah.
And so to dive back into this world is very fraught for me.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something that I need to do and that it's part of my healing process, and I want to help others to heal too. But at the same time, I want to be like, y'all go fuck yourselves. I'm going to live my life, because it's really tricky. How do you guys navigate that? Like, do you feel more exposed and kind of like have these moments of what did I get myself into?
Yes. Yeah.
Mike said yes. Hold on. I got to get my charger real quick. I'm so sorry. I got to get my charger here. Sorry.
Yeah. But like, I feel that too, Charity. The like stomach knots. I still get it. Anytime we start talking about that, like I have to take a deep belly breath. I didn't learn about belly breathing until recently. Is that crazy?
It really helps.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. These are the things I wanted to learn about. Not battle. I wanted to learn about belly breathing.
But Mike, it's the right hand over and the left hand under.
Got it.
That'll do it.
I learned that like if my palm is like freckly, that means I have the Spirit, the Holy Spirit.
You got the Spirit.
I didn't learn how to. I didn't learn about diaphragmatic breathing, but I learned.
Are we talking spiritual signs right now?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Let's get into it.
Signs and wonders.
Which one's the one of lust? Is it the elbow?
No,
the sexiest
the
part of a
stomach.
human body is the elbow, and this is how you know.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Okay.
No, you're good.
We're good. Mike says yes, and then I interrupt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you ask that question again, Sherry?
Have you felt vulnerable putting yourself in this position to be criticized, critiqued, or however, just even
getting back into the living word, surrounding yourself with people, and
Yeah, I have. Okay. But yep. So it's a wrap. Yeah, exactly that kind of abuse is what I've been afraid of, Scott. No, yeah, just like everything feels the more I feel that, the more it feels like worth it. The more somebody says, so I'm trying to balance this line of like being open to criticism. If anybody's like, you guys aren't doing it right, you're being too critical, you're not being critical enough, you're being too platforming of certain people, you're not being platforming of certain people enough, you got too much of an agenda, not enough of any criticism. I want to be really open to it because I think it's all valid, it's all important to hear. And at the same time, the fact that people have want to have so much control over what's being said just reinforces that people need to be talking more, because you're kind of admitting, if you're saying you should be saying it this way and you shouldn't be saying it this way, it's like you're putting all of your eggs into the bat. It's like I'm supposed to be your mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm
That's
me.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
just
that's
means
exactly
people should be
how,
talking more.
Yeah, like you're saying, the people should be talking more is 100% the situation, and I think that is, we felt very similar thing. I think, we're asking for it a little bit, because we're hitting record and hitting upload and saying, hey, we are inviting it a little bit, but I think a lot of time, I know for me, it's been a little bit of learning that realizing it's not my responsibility to tell everybody else's story. Right. I have to. The only way we can do this is if we're doing it for ourselves. Like the second it doesn't benefit me, we've got to be out, because that's the living word. I think kind of what you're saying, like it's that it balance, because there's a little bit of you want to hear other people, but also like it's that thing that like re-traumatizing from the living word of like, you should be doing it this way and this way and this way, which is really just going to kill any interesting conversation.
That's right. It feeds into the people pleasing thing. And then it's being disingenuous. It's like, it's not, oh my God, there's a deer in my front yard. Sorry. I live in town, so every time I see deer, which I see them regularly enough, but like literally in my front yard right now.
You know, that's a spiritual sign of
Spiritual sign.
that's the sign of
Take a picture.
disobedience.
Disobedience, yeah.
I don't know, it sounded right.
It's just its butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the deer butt.
and
The deer butt is a specific sign.
You can't get a good photo, but it's a sign of.
Yeah.
What about you, Charlie? How do you deal with it?
That's funny. I have zero problem with it, but
Nice.
I think, I that wasn't always the case. That's kind of a recent thing. I think, and it's funny because maybe I'm just not really. Maybe I should be more involved in that stuff. But I don't know. It's funny. I like. It just something snapped in me, and I was just like, yeah, I don't really care. When Mike and I talked about starting a thing, we were like, we're going to get this from whatever side, and let's just really do our best to not placate anybody. Like, let's just talk about what we talk about. That was one of our driving forces. I knew that Jeremiah's episode was going to get a lot of people pissed, and I was like, I don't care it's not that I don't care what people are feeling or whatever, because I do. One of the main reasons of doing it is to help people and share my experience, and hopefully that can help. Was the driving force behind getting into Hassan's bite model and all these kind of things, because I want people to be aware of things in their own lives so that they can identify things and hopefully like take it upon themselves or help others and just whatever. But so it's not that I don't care. I think the feedback is super important, but it doesn't bother me like it used to or whatever. But it definitely, there's something in me that's just like kind of expects it to come, and it's like people are going to be fucking pissed, and it's kind of fun. Yeah, it's this weird thing. Like I kind of love it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense. It's kind of an exercise in the anti-people pleasing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, am I going to?
I think that's probably where everybody that's coming from.
Yeah, because that's my natural tendency is like, oh, I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want people to dislike me. And then I'm like, wait, what if this is me? Yeah. Like, I got really hurt. I found out someone said that I'm snarky. They don't like how snarky I am, and it was a former member, and I was just like shattered by it.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, this person doesn't even know me for one thing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a thing in the church was like, you think you know each other just because you're in the same like cult, and you draw these conclusions about people. But that's also another reason why it's so important, like you guys are saying, to talk for everyone just to keep talking. Because I think the more that we share our experiences, the more you're reminded of like, we are people. We are individuals who have all been hurt in different ways. We have different experiences. If we could just maybe find a place of like more grace for each other and like understanding that we're all coming from a traumatized place and just let each other be who we are and whatever stage of growth or recovery that we're in. And as for me, it was really interesting. Like, I love what Charlie said is like, at some point you're just like, I don't care. That experience for me was a turning point of like, okay, you know what? Guess what? I am snarky, and I love that about myself.
Good.
I don't have to be Miss like nicey nice, please everyone all the time. That's a benefit of choosing to expose oneself to all this again, is because instead of letting it destroy you or make you feel like you're wrong or bad, like many of our experiences in the cult did. It's like, now I can stand up for myself and say, you know what? Actually, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean?
And
it's empowering.
There's
totally.
Growing up, there was always a lot of. I feel like being atmosphere is the biggest thing that I fight against. I have a hard time being willing to not be an atmosphere to somebody, but it's like the main thing that I'm working on is like, you don't have to be an atmosphere to.
What the hell does that mean?
I feel like I have to be an atmosphere. I feel like I have to be an atmosphere to everybody.
So good.
It means like whatever you just zero in on what they need, and you just make yourself that. And so we're very, and I'm getting back to my point, which is that Charity, I feel like people are blasting you with this sense of like, how dare you make anybody feel uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you say things that makes people feel like squirmy and uncomfortable and be snarky about something that they would think about, they would be more tempted to defend or whatever. We should be uncomfortable. We should make each other uncomfortable. Like it's fine. You can make people uncomfortable and you're not a bad person, but like we've been so trained that you can't make anybody uncomfortable, that we see somebody else making us and others uncomfortable. We want to blast them with shame. And it's something that we should confront people with, and they should learn. You don't get to do that. Like people are just gonna say what they think from their perspective, and you don't have to shame them for making you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
one thing I'm finding is like I have a lot of resentment in me that like manifests in like a lot of anger, and it's an interesting thing that I'm working through a lot, which is like going a little too far the other way. So it's like we were trained to be people pleasers and to go and to like, the whole be an atmosphere means to walk in and put yourself out of it and just focus on others and be and morph and adapt to whatever. Yeah. Morph and adapt to the situation of somebody else and what they need, not knowing anything about where they're fucking at. They could be these pieces of shit people that like they're like plotting a murder, but you need to be an atmosphere for them, you know? Like you have no idea what's going on, but you're told like you walk into that room and you're just you got to just be an atmosphere, and it's like so that's ingrained in us. And then so then I've taken it kind of so far where it's like one thing I do that this is not a good thing I'm working on is I'm constantly feeling attacked. I'm constantly feeling like well, what about my feelings and what about me? And what, because like somebody's sharing something with me, and it's really hard, and it can be really devastating, and it can really be very exposing. And I'm just like, so that's kind of a tangent, but it's like, it's just going back to finding the balance of everything, because which is the life goal. It's like, yes, like doing the opposite of what we were raised to do, which is love yourself, take care of yourself, put your feelings as a priority in your life, and put your fears and your all these things and passions and all these things are very important. This is the truth that we were told. It's not true. But like you can take it real far, man, and like really go off the rails with it. Like I have to really hold it back, and it's hard. And it's my lizard brain going like just responding. I'll just respond in this way where I'm just like, but that's because I've switched over where I'm like, never again. And I'm going to be hyper aware of all this stuff. And so it's just a balance.
Yeah. I definitely feel myself doing that sometimes too. And, I think that's kind of what I was saying earlier is like, well, we chose to hit record and upload this. We are inviting, not like inviting, like they have a right to it, but like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes like, you get to that lizard brain part because like you're exhausted and like you're getting in a lot, and you're just like, and then like somebody who's they're just probably not aware that they're having this effect on you or whatever, but like a comment or something like that. And you're just like immediately, and it just makes, I definitely fall into that thing too, where like you see those patterns and you're just like, you just start letting it out in this way that like it's not great. But it's okay. It's really, it's okay. It's like you're defending yourself, but wanting to find that peaceful place of like, I can listen but I can also, have the strength in myself to like speak up for myself and
That's a part of the thing that I was talking about of like just feeling stunted in a lot of ways is I'm at this age, I'm almost 40 and I'm like learning how to do these things and you're just like, fuck, man. But it's a part of the journey for sure.
Definitely a part of the journey.
Sorry, Mike.
I think the last thing we're going to do is we're going to spend the next 45 minutes just bashing Christians. So
let's get into man, that's what Mike and I get going. Yeah,
let's
bring on the heat. No, it's interesting. One funny thing was that just about with the comments and stuff. And Mike, again, I'm not on Facebook and stuff, but it's funny. Like some of it's so absurd. Like this is just leads back where you can't please everybody and you're just never going to be able to. But there was one, right, where we're like, Mike's on there messaging a woman, asking her if she would come on the podcast and like talk to us. And like in that same thread, right, Mike, or something, like another woman was like, you guys just, it's just the men's club. Like there's just no men on there. And Mike's like, I'm literally asking a woman on here if she would come on our podcast. And like, yeah, it's just, you're never going to get to everybody, man.
Yeah.
It's just,
And she, by the way, she by the way was like is super cool. She just like, that was her first reaction, but
no, fuck her. Nope. I don't. I'm just kidding.
That was her first reaction, and I think I had to convey like, look, we're 3 episodes in, but the first one was just me interviewing Charlie. The second one was Charlie interviewing me.
Yeah.
The third episode was actually the first time we interviewed anybody other than us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just only one interview in, but
kind of one in. Yeah, we're just getting rolling.
Yeah. But like, it's like you said, you're not gonna please everybody, and you just have to be okay with that. And I don't have to be an atmosphere for her or anybody else in creating a podcast, and they don't have to be an atmosphere to me to do it. They can criticize me all they want. They have every right to. And I just have to learn that like, that's not going to end me. I'm just we just keep going. And so, and like, if anything, it just makes us, know more. And you get a sense of, like we said before, it just means more people got to talk more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the hardest thing. I think we run across that a lot. Just, it's very hard for people to talk.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's actually really hard about talking with people on, and I don't mean this in any way as like I don't know, criticism or whatever, but like, when we pick people to come on the podcast, part of it is, can you talk? Can you share? Have you shared your story before?
Yeah.
Have you spoken about it at all? Because if this is the first time, it's not going to be a story. It's just going to be a lot of words
all over the place.
And that's really hard, because I do love it when somebody says their story for the first time, because there's nuggets of just amazing. They have the release. You say it out loud and then you watch them go, oh my God. And you're like, cool, I want to capture that. But it's just surrounded by a forest of nonsense, because they're trying to figure, it's all just jumbled in your brain, which I understand. I mean, like, I was silent, taught my Trish, my therapist, who, when I first went to, like, her whole goal with me was just like, could you fucking say a word? Just something. Literally speak, just speak. I couldn't do that. I couldn't talk. And that was just like, so there was just a lot of money spent on talking and using words to just put things out. And I'm still not great at it, obviously. But like, it's so that is like a big part of this. And so when you say, Mike, like, just talk, just say it, even if it doesn't make any sense. You're going to be terrified to say it for the first time. But when you do say it, it's amazing for you. And then say it again and again and again and again and again. And then you will finally like know the place that it belongs in your life, and it doesn't subconsciously live in your head controlling you. Whatever.
Well, I will say too, like, on I know we've talked kind of a lot about, like, because it's fun to talk about the negative feedback and stuff, but like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure you guys have gotten an insane amount of positive feedback.
No, nothing. This is
we have not one person. We've been trying. That is really cool to get a lot of positive feedback too, and I love it when somebody texts me and is just like, "Wow, like that episode just like totally made me think about things differently in my own experience." Like, that's everything.
Amazing. That makes it worth it.
That makes everything
it really
worth
makes it worth
it. Yeah, because that's all we're trying to do. And we are calling out the Living Word Fellowship for its cult. Like, of course we're going to call it out for things that happen because it needs to be done. But like, we're also just trying to help each other heal, and that's like the most important thing. And I've found so much healing through it. we haven't put out an episode in like 2 years, but like I've found a lot of healing through it. I've found so much healing through your podcast, so much, and I can't even like express the amount of like healing I've found personally through some of these episodes. And then like I've gotten so much feedback from people about just having these platforms where somebody can go on and hear about it, and just be like, yeah, I didn't know all those things about JRS, because again, we were told the opposite. So a lot of this stuff
we were all siloed.
Yeah,
we were all siloed from one another too. It's like we weren't allowed to talk about anything negative. Right. So then you think you're alone in your experience, and that's why it's so healing now to hear. Oh my God, you too.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody just like you had the same experience as me. Like, I mean, it's the most powerful thing in the world. Yeah, that's what was so amazing. Shalom puts out these letters that aren't even that. It's like, I mean, they were a big deal, but I'm just saying, like, they weren't like, oh, like this big dramatic like risque thing or whatever that came out with all these details, but it was like, it just got everybody talking, and then everybody starts to share their own thing, and that's why it was so huge. The fact that she had the courage to do that, and then which is insane to me, and I love that. And then then everybody else had the courage to get on and start telling their stories that were that's funny, they sound exactly the same as 2,000 other people's stories. And then and so it's a beautiful thing for sure, but
it really is. Yeah. Keep it. Well, let's all keep it going.
For sure.
We'll keep talking about all of this, I think, in whatever way we can.
Yeah. And people should contact us to come on and talk, because I mean, our email address is snappingoutofit@proton.me. So email us there and just come on and talk. I know everybody we've talked to.
But if it's really good, you should email us first.
There it is.
Don't go on our competitor show. If you go on our competitor show, you'll never be allowed on our show.
That's over. That's it.
Well, we should link your contact information, because in all honesty, if like somebody feels more comfortable talking to you guys than to us, like people should just have the outlet they feel more comfortable with. So it's nice to have options.
Mike made the best analogy of our podcast that I found so fucking hilarious. Mike's like, we were just talking about how much we love your podcast a while back, and he's like, and he's like, it's like they're like NPR and we're like Kevin and Bean from K-Rock, which is the local LA like radio station of just those. And I was like,
they were the classic ones that like make weird sound effects and like turn on dumb.
Just like freeform, kind of it's just kind of like figure it out as you go. And you guys have like this intro with music and all this shit.
I think even more apt. I think even more apt for us is like Wayne's World in our like parents' basement.
Wayne's World. 100%.
I love it though. It's like, well, I don't know. I think we cuss too much for NPR standards.
Yeah,
it's mostly me.
That's the beauty of it all, man. Yeah. No, anybody anybody coming out and talking about anything and sharing their story in any way, shape, or form is so powerful.
Yeah, and I think we've reached out to so many people that are maybe going to come on at some point, but the biggest hesitation they all have is like, well, I don't know I don't have like a message. I don't have anything to say, but even just, I mean, everybody has thought that, and then they've all come on and we've just, the time has flown by and we just talk about stuff, but it's from somebody else's perspective. So anybody listening, it's going to be like, half of it's going to be like, I didn't know that. The other half's going to be like, it's so good to hear somebody else say the thing that I've been thinking. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to, we don't have to be breaking a story all the time. It's just just talking is like, so, I mean, just getting to like, it feels so good to hear somebody else just talk about it, because it makes, it makes connections you weren't making. And
absolutely,
it doesn't have to feel that interesting while you're talking. Just come on and talk, and it'll be really good for everybody.
Definitely.
Well,
I know it's been so fun, like reconnecting with you guys.
Absolutely.
After all these years, and like,
that's good. Charlie, that tornado hit
It got real dark over there.
Yeah, it's real bad. And I wanted to apologize. I wanted to apologize for you guys. All three of you have like nice warm lighting, and I look like a kabuki troupe theater actor, just with like the white, just like a face covered in white.
Glow.
Yeah. So
well, it's because you got like a tornado warning coming your way.
Yeah,
like
there is a tornado
that's why we
warning.
have to kind of wrap this up now. Otherwise, you're going to get swooped away.
I got to get to the crawl space pretty soon. But Mike's in the same area, so yeah.
I'm in my safe room.
All right.
Mike's in the safe room. Mike's only an hour and a half south of me. So
my family, on the other hand, we'll see how.
Yeah, Mike's in his safe room, but his kids and wife, they're.
They can't come in until you're done recording. That's the deal. Banging on the door.
Oh man, thank you guys. No, that was fun.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
It
was really fun. Definitely.
Y'all look great.
And
you guys.
And we'll
great.
see you soon over on Snapping Out of It.
Yeah, that's the other thing is we're gonna have.
Yeah, so just.
Yes.
No,
yes,
you go
Charity.
Ahead. You go.
We're gonna have Scott and Charity on our show too. Maybe together, maybe individually.
We'll figure.
Please individually, so I can finally talk about Charity because
you can finally just
talk shit about
the real uncut behind the scenes story. Yeah, yeah.
She's a real bitch, just like y'all thought.
Yeah,
that snarky thing. Oh, that's just the beginning.
Yeah. You thought it was just snarky, but
come on,
Charity.
Joe, sure, like bag on the one woman in this scenario,
exactly.
Of course.
That's right.
Cut it all out. Cut all of this out. Oh no, that'll be fun. Yeah.
So for our listeners, if you want to go check out my cat is attacking me. If you want to check out our sister podcast, it's Snapping Out of It. You're on Spotify and Apple.
Just Spotify right now, but we're gonna
just Spotify.
Yeah, we're gonna update that, and we should have a new episode out by the time this comes out too.
Yeah.
Cool.
And our new episode is going to be about
Perfect.
moving on.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I love that. Oh,
About to get murdered by my cat. Damn it. She possessed by a demon. Double power.
Thanks for listening to Oops, I'm in a Cult.
Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Follow us on Instagram at Oops, I'm in a Cult Podcast.
Support us on Supercast by visiting our website at oopsiminacult.com to subscribe and receive exclusive bonus content.
Or email us at oopsiminacult@gmail.com.
Take it easy and don't join a cult. If you or someone you know has a mental illness, is struggling emotionally, or has concerns about their mental health, there are ways to get help. Use the resources linked in the description to find help for you, a friend, or a family member.